This is Will Decker, your host. I am so lucky to have Cary Krongard, the beat writer for the UCLA Bruins, on my podcast today. Cary, what is going on this fine Sunday?
Will, not much. Just happy to be here. Happy to be talking football once again. It's been, I don't think I've been on a podcast since last year, so I might be a little rusty here, but I'll do the best I can, and looking forward to talking some football, talking some UCLA Bruins.
We just had Pac-12 Media Day. It got me really excited that football is just around the corner for us. And the UCLA Bruins, coming off of a difficult campaign, they lost 4 games last year by a combined 15 points. They have 19 of 22 starters coming back in a pivotal year for Chip Kelly and company. But the guy I want to start with is Jerry Azzinaro. Jerry Azzinaro, very controversial figure within UCLA football fans' lives. The first 3 years he's on campus, the defense ranked in the hundreds. And for those who do not know, there's only 130 Division I football teams in the country. So when you're in the hundreds, it's not great. He made a little bit of a jump last year, 73rd in the country. The team was number 1 in the Pac-12 in sacks, which was an encouraging sign. And it led the Pac-12 in yards per carry for opponents. So they held them to 3.6 yards a carry within the Pac-12. Still, Azzinaro gets another year under his belt and gets re-signed effectively. Cary, what was your thoughts on bringing back Azzinaro as a whole?
Well, so again, like you said, very controversial figure among the UCLA fandom, and not in a good way. I actually didn't even realize they re-signed him, and when I looked up for it, I couldn't really find a headline, so they must have done that quietly, I think. And he's a guy that Chip Kelly has brought from every destination he's been. He was at Oregon with Chip Kelly, then he came to Philly, then he came to San Francisco with Kelly, and now all the way to UCLA. So, a little bit of maybe nepotism there. I think that's part of the reason fans are a little frustrated with it. But you're right. Looking back at Azzinaro's tenure, the defense in the last year of Jim Mora's tenure was awful, and it showed slight improvement in Chip Kelly's first year, and then it just, went off the rails, like you said, in the hundreds. I think their pass defense, either Kelly's second year, I believe, was second or third to last in the country. So, yeah, really just horrible. But like you said, they did show improvement last year. Last year was the best year for Chip Kelly and this Bruins team overall. And if you look at the splits according to the games, it was really kind of boom or bust here. In their wins, they're holding teams to 10, and 18 points. And then in their losses, they're giving up 48, 38, 43, and 48 points. That last game was a double overtime game, so a bit of an asterisk there. And of course, a lot of these are mistakes by the offense that then, compounds itself and you're playing catch up. So, it's like you said, there are good things and there are bad things about this move. I think they did improve in terms of, like you said, sacks and turnovers. The problem is the pass defense. The pass defense needs to be better and not sort of, similar to kind of what this whole team does when they start to struggle is they get a bad game or they get a bad matchup or an opponent and they just let things tumble out of control. They need to kind of manage it better and allow this team to stay in the game, not give up scores late, not, as good as the offense is, you don't want to be in shootouts every game. So I think like the entire team, like the coaching staff, it is a bit of a question mark, but this is the direction they're going. And at the very least, you do have continuity. You have a lot of, like you said, returning players, a lot of juniors and seniors, and a lot of continuity in that secondary. So again, I can't be overly optimistic, but you cross your fingers and you hope that continuity pays off, I guess.
Yeah, I totally agree, man. You're going to have a lot of veterans on the backside of that 4-2-5 defense. Blaylock, Quentin Lake, Quantrez Knight, who's really emerged as a leader for this team. Media Day, who was selected by his teammates as like a captain coming there representing UCLA. So Quantrez Knight doing big things in Westwood as a transfer. Started his career at Maryland, went to Kent State, now at UCLA. Quentin Lake, the son of Carnell Lake, has showed incredible flashes when he is healthy, but that's the problem. He's only played over 5 games once in his career. Kind of give me your synopsis on Quentin Lake, and if he's healthy this year, do you think he can be a potential maybe all Pac-12 performer?
I do. I think you hit the nail on the head with that secondary, with that defense, a lot of returning players. I agree about Quantrez Knight. He's been phenomenal, and I think, that's one thing that Chip Kelly has been impressive in recent years at building the team through recruiting, but also through transfers. There's actually been an impressive amount of transfers coming to this program, both on offense and defense. But yeah, Quentin Lake, I think he's a ball hawk. I think he's a leader. And I think ultimately, again, like you said, as is the question for a lot of, football players, college and pro, can you stay healthy? And, if you can't see the field, then that's a problem. But I agree. I think the secondary is a strong suit. I think they were ball hawks last year. And I think you combine them with obviously, some, we'll talk about this more, some losses on the defensive line, but you have enough players, I think, coming in to replace them that if they feel comfortable in the scheme, which they should, it should be a group that can keep you afloat. I mean, they're not going to be the best defense in the Pac-12, obviously, but if the offense can stay consistent, I think it's a defense that you can win with.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of good options coming back. Caleb Johnson being one of them. 5.5 sacks in 7 games. Spoiler, we got a prop bet coming up about that, if he's going to hit an over and under. We did with Mike Regalado. We did with Ben Bolch. We're going to be doing it with Cary Krongard today. Jonathan Agude was really great too. Had more tackles for a loss than games played. That's always a key sign for you that somebody's doing the right thing there. I want to kind of pivot to Bo Calvert. He's kind of a hot topic as well, just like Azanero on this defense. There's a lot of inconsistency with his play last year. Do you think Calvert is the favorite to lead that linebacker spot this year, or do you think another player will step up and take that?
I do think that Chip Kelly tends to lean with veterans, so I would think he is. And again, it's tough. Like you said, part of the problem with last year is it was such a small sample size that it's kind of hard to project moving forward. And especially, the Pac-12 is just wild. And when you just had that solely in conference schedule and a bunch of teams that were all over the place, so you never know really what to project moving forward. But yeah, I mean, this is a team that, again, I think that you would expect the veterans to get the first kind of shot at this thing moving forward. And then, maybe if his play, isn't up to par, then you see some other guys come in. But yeah, I would think, just judging on how Chip Kelly has run this group in the past, that he would be the first slot in that position to move forward.
Awesome. Well, I'm going to ask you for a prediction right now. So, is this defense? There's 12 teams I believe there's 12 teams in the Pac-12. I mean, 12. Does this team rank in the top 6 in defense this year for the Bruins? I mean, there's a lot of good defenses in the Pac-12, but does this team crack the top 6?
Just because I'm a pessimist by nature, I'm going to say no. I would probably, I don't think they're going to be last. I would probably have them around a little below average, maybe 7 or 8 would be my guess.
7 or 8. Okay, that's a fair assessment of the defense, especially with that. But I do want to say, if they can crack, the top 60, top 50 defenses with the offense that we're expecting this year, I do think this is a team that can, win 8 or 9 games and could be in the hunt for a Pac-12 title game appearance if everything does go well in Westwood. Let's pivot to the offensive side of the ball. The most notable star is DTR, Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Everyone wants to know what he's going to do. It's starting to look like the quarterback ability is catching up with the athlete that we know DTR is. Kind of give me your overview of DTR and how excited are you for the 2021 campaign with him running the offense?
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head. We knew he was an athlete. We knew he's talented. Can you learn how to play the quarterback position? Just 1 year starting as a quarterback in high school. Before that, he was a wide receiver. I was not the biggest fan of DTR early in his career. I thought he had a lot of issues in terms of accuracy, in terms of his feet. He was very jumpy in the pocket. Not the greatest feel for the pocket, tends to back himself into pressure at times. But he's an electric playmaker. I mean, his rushing has improved dramatically. We know he could always run. It's just do you include it in the offense, and when do you run? I think is more a question of seeing those lanes and knowing when to pull it, knowing when to keep looking downfield. So I think that's improved, and I think as a passer, his accuracy's gotten better. His decision making, I don't think it's going to be great, but I think it's good enough. And I think his best attribute is that his aggressiveness. Right, he's going to squeeze the ball into those tight windows, and I think. In this offense, in this, Chip Kelly offense, that's been an asset for this team. I think the leash is maybe a little shorter this year just because it's the most crowded quarterback room we've had, which is a good thing, right? Always good to have competition. But I'm relatively optimistic and excited for Dorian Thompson-Robinson's performance. I think He's a senior. I think it's all on his shoulders now. He's the leader of this team. He understands what that means. He understands what it means to play quarterback. I think he should end up playing well. Again, the biggest issue with him has been the mistakes, the turnovers, and when you have one, can you kind of bounce back and not have it tumble, onto itself and continue to turn the football over? But I think he's been an improving player, an ascending player in this system, in this scheme, and he'll get the shot to be the guy, and they're expecting him to be the guy. So it should be good things on the horizon. I mean, it's his senior year, and it's all on him at this point.
Watching a lot of DTR tape, he does make those boneheaded throws at times where you're just kind of like, what are you trying to do there? You're trying to fit into a hole that just wasn't there. But he did complete over 60% of his passes last year for the first time in his career. This is a guy that has shown tangible improvement. I mean, the rushing with the passing last year was fantastic. I mean, notably the Colorado game, he had that 60-yard touchdown run on the ground. He really seemed to find his target and Greg Dulcich as the season went along, which is great. We're going to talk more about Dulcich in a second, but I do want to stick with the quarterback room. Chase Griffin got some time last year while Robinson was out. He looked pretty solid from the stat-wise. What did you see from Chase Griffin in last year?
Yeah. It's interesting you bring that up because I think, talk about, Dorian Thompson-Robinson and sort of the hot and cold, some of the mistakes he makes. I think, when you've seen other quarterbacks in this system, obviously it was Wilton Speight the first year, and then a couple other guys have gotten time here and there. Chase Griffin is one. I think he's one of those kind of game manager guys. I don't think he's going to give you the high highs of Dorian Thompson-Robinson. I don't think he's going to quite give you the head-scratching turnovers either. So I think he's a guy that can kind of come in, and especially with DTR, there is an injury risk there because he likes to run with the football. So I think Chase Griffin's a guy that can kind of come in and run your system, be accurate, be effective. He's, again, I don't think he's as good an athlete as DTR is or as some of the other guys in this room. He's not a five-star recruit, right? He's not going to wow you, but I think he's a guy that can come in and get the job done. So, and I think with so that's sort of the split I've seen. When DTR starting, it's your big plays. It's hot and cold. You're either getting a big pass down the field, but you're getting some of those negative plays too, and you kind of take the good with the bad. And when other guys come in, you're not going to get those explosive plays, but they're gonna maybe protect the football, run the system a little better. But I think given that the defense is good but not great, and given the explosive potential of this offense, I think that's why they've stuck with DTR. But Griffin, like you said, he's I don't have anything negative to say about him. I think he's good. I think he's a good guy to have in that quarterback room that's shown he can kind of step in if DTR gets a little too hot-headed or the injury bug hits or any of those things happen.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm liking what I've seen from Chase Griffin. I'll say that. I need to develop a little bit more film, watching on him. But from what I've seen, Chase Griffin, he seems like a solid, quarterback in the Pac-12. I'm not saying he's going to be a future pro or anything like that, but, the lack of turnovers, the lack of, ill-advised throws, as DTR does at times, makes you feel a little comfortable if something were to happen to DTR again. Knock on wood, that doesn't happen, Bruins fans, but we do have a guy there that can help us out. I want to turn to the running back room. Britton Brown coming back, the Duke transfer, averaged 6.7 yards a carry last year coming back, and we pair him with the new transfer, Zach Charbonnet. Both these running backs are pretty good. We kind of got two bulky backs that are going to be able to change the pace of the defense. What do you like about this tandem so far?
I really like the running back room. I'm glad you brought it up. I think the scheme in general, tends to make running backs. I think you've seen it. We've had good running backs in Chip Kelly era, no doubt. Demetric Felton and Joshua Kelly before him. But I think, the scheme, I think the tempo, the offensive line, I think has been really good at just the run blocking. They maul guys. They get 3, 4, 5 yards downfield. I think they do a mix of runs. They do inside zone. They do outside zone. But, they really want to start with the running game and build, then you build the option. You build, the play action seams down the field. You talk about Dulcich. We'll talk about him. But I really like this running back room. I think, with Felton leaving, I think you're going to see a bigger role for both these guys. He was kind of the main guy last year. So, and I think it'll be a two-headed running back monster, I think, Chip Kelly has always liked to spread the carries around, keep defenses guessing. And so Britton Brown, he's going to continue what he was doing last year. And Charbonnet, as a Wolverines fan, he was really good at Michigan, and Michigan was a mess last year, so he ended up transferring. So I think he's going to be great for this offense. I think he's a downhill runner. He's a tough guy. I think it's a great fit for his skill set, and I think just in general, this this should be a formidable offense and a formidable rushing attack. And I would be surprised if it was anything less than that, honestly, coming into the season. I think it's probably the biggest strength of the team, if not one of them.
And I think that's going to ultimately just help out DTR in the long run, because if you have a run game like that, it's one thing to have two really good backs, but it's another thing, as you said, with the offensive line coming back, top 7 returning linemen from last year. I mean, that is such an advantage in college football. And it's not just like an average line coming back. Sean Ryan, if he plays well again this year, he's got a chance to be the first-round lineman for UCLA since Colton Miller a couple of years back, who got drafted by the Raiders. Alec Anderson is a great bookend tackle on the right-hand side. You got guys lining up there that are just maulers in the run game. And you combine that with 2 talented backs, I mean, watch out. I think we have a real chance with the Bruins of having a top 10 offense in all of college football if things go right this year. Give me a little keep going.
No, I was just because they've grown up a lot, that offensive line. They were kind of a weakness the first year that Chip Kelly came here, but I mean, they maul guys and they wear you down. I mean, if you can get a lead with Chip Kelly, if you can, run the ball into that fourth quarter with the lead, I mean, it's tough to stop. And they really, the only way to stop them is themselves. Do they turn the football over? Do they make mistakes? Do they protect the football? It's not a team you want to be facing because they get downhill and they get downhill fast. So I'm with you. I think this running game it's where it starts for the Bruins, and I would expect it to be a formidable moving forward.
Formidable to say the least. Let's go to the receiving room. A lot of returning faces. Chase Cota, Kyle Phillips. These are guys that have been around. Cota has been a little bit more of a disappointment in my eyes. He has only one 100-yard career game, but he is coming back for his senior year. He was a former Army All-American out of Oregon. Kyle Phillips has just been the epitome of a solid slot receiver in his time at UCLA. He's led the team in catches the last 2 seasons. Great punt returner, too, in the return game. What do you like about these guys, and what do you think their ceiling is for 2021?
I think the ceiling's pretty high. I mean, Dulcich is a guy that just came onto the field and just amazed last year. I mean, I don't think anyone knew who he was coming into the season. And I would expect more of the same, honestly. I think, going down the seam, he and DTR clearly had a connection. They clearly had chemistry. I would, with a full off season, I would expect that to improve. Like you said, Kyle Phillips, just reliable, consistent. He's going to be there, slot guy, talented. I agree with you. Cota has been a bit of a disappointment. So I'm not,
optimistic,
doing this thing, whatever that's called. Crossing my fingers. Brain fart there. I'm not crossing my fingers too much for him, but you never know. I mean, I think Kelly tends to like to spread the ball around. DTR gets a little bit more, chemistry with one guy with Dulcich last year, which is not a bad thing, honestly, if you're making it work. But I think this offense is dangerous. I think it's formidable. I think, like I said, can they and DTR specifically, can they protect the football, and can they, ride the waves of games where, with some of the tougher opponents. But when it's going like they want, like the game plan, like Kelly draws it up, when they have a lead, when they're running the football, when they have a good pass run balance, when they're getting everyone involved, when they're catching the football, it's a formidable offense, and it's gotten better, it's improved, and that's what you want to see. I mean, obviously, Chip Kelly hasn't met expectations up to this point, but they had their best season last year, and you felt like they were just on the brink. They were just teetering, and if they could just, kind of tighten some of the screws and get things just a little bit better, that they'd be dangerous. And, in the Pac-12, anything can happen. So I think it will be an offensive first team. We talked about the defense, not that they're, not a bad defense, but I think it's going to run through the offense. And I think just with the seniors and with the experience that this group has and the continuity that this group has, I think that's where they're most dangerous when you look around the rest of the Pac-12, and we'll do that. They've we came in and Kelly was getting rid of everyone, and it was a lot of youth and it was a lot of freshmen. And he was saying, we got a lot of young players, let's just wait. And they're not so young anymore. So I would expect them to take the next step this year and kind of be pretty dangerous for the rest of the Pac-12.
I love it, man. And anyone who knows that has listened to the first 3 episodes, this is a George Kittle stand pod, or sorry, not George Kittle, Greg Dulcich. I say George Kittle because he reminds me of George Kittle. I'm a Niners fan. I see the blocking. I see the route running. I see him going downfield, making catches in traffic, welcoming contact. He wears 85 like Kittle too. I mean, it just makes so much sense.
Yeah.
Greg Dulcich, the funniest thing about this is anyone could have gotten this guy. I mean, he was a walk-on player. It makes no sense that this guy who tore up USC, a school that snubbed him completely, 10 catches, 167 yards, a touchdown. I mean, he was the best player on that field that night. Greg Dulcich is an absolute baller. And, I think he's got a real chance to win the Mackey Award when all is said and done, if he can repeat kind of the numbers he had, yards per catch he had last season. Another guy to watch out in the receiving room, Cam Brooks, transferred from Texas A&M. Mike Regalado went to the spring practices. Did you end up making it out there as well?
I'm all the way on the East Coast, so I did not know. Not this time.
Oh, no worries. You're good, my man. So Mike went, and he told me Cam Brooks, he looked pretty good. So that's another name to watch out for. He was getting some reps in with the ones, things like that. Obviously talented, was playing the SEC beforehand. So if we can get a guy like Cam Brooks, kind of in the mix with Dakota and the Phillips, I think that's a really, really solid crew. Outside of that, I want to move to some prop bets. This is one of my favorite parts of this. I've done it with Mike, as I was mentioning with Ben. Let's do it with Cary. So I picked these numbers very specifically. This is Dorian Thompson-Robinson. Over under 3,800 yards passing and 33 touchdowns through the air.
Let's see. Let me just go to. I thought I had his stats open from last year, but I don't. So I'm just going to wing this one. So we got. Say that again. 3,800 through the air and 33 passing touchdowns.
Correct.
It's high. I'm a pessimist, so I'm gonna go under here. I'm gonna just because of the the injury and the injury history, but I would love to see it. Obviously, if we get that.
Same here, man. The reason I chose that was it was comparable to Brett Hundley's best year passing, who is a very similar player from UCLA.
They are similar players. You're right.
Yeah, dual threat. Can change the pace of the game. Hundley, I think, had a little bit more consistency throughout his career, but I think if Thompson-Robinson puts it all together this year, he could have one of the best years we've seen from a Bruin, maybe ever, if he's able to click everything. And, with the offensive line, the run game, Dulcich there, he's got everything he needs. It's going to be on him.
It's all there for him, absolutely. And I think it will be a good year for him. I just the injury history and also the run, they want to run the ball first, which I think does lessen his yards a little bit. So I would go just under, I would say.
Just under. Yeah. That's fair, because the next question I'm going to ask you on the prop bets is the run game type of stuff. Mm-hmm. So he ran for just over 300 yards last year in a 7-game sample size. I know he missed 2 of them. How about 650 yards on the ground, and let's go 8 touchdowns, over under.
650 and 8. Again, these are good numbers. So you said he had 300 last year. You're going to be playing close to double the games. I'll go. I think yards. I'll say over because that's the number you're giving me. The 8 touchdowns is a lot. But yards definitely over. So I'll just go with the over there.
I love it. He's going with the over. He had 300 plus rushing yards in 5 games. Yeah. If he's healthy for a year, I think that's a reasonable thing you can achieve, especially with his skill set. I mean, boy, he's blowing by some of these DBs when he gets in the open field. So
yeah, and let's not forget he played wide receiver in high school. So he's a dynamic athlete, absolutely.
Bishop Gorman too, one of the powerhouses. He may have played for one of the best college or high school football teams of all time back in those time periods. So we got the first over from Cary. I love it. Here's a combo question. We're going back to the running back room.
Yeah,
Britton Brown, Zach Charbonnet. This is going to be, like we were talking about, one of the potential best run games in all of college football next year.
Yeah.
Do they go over a combined, so combining their rushing yards, 1,700 yards and 20 touchdowns?
Okay, so I do actually have Felton's numbers here. So last year he was 668 for 5 touchdowns. In a shortened season, so we're talking combined. Can you give me those numbers again?
1,700 yards on the ground and 20-plus touchdowns between Charbonnet and Britton Brown.
Yeah, between them. So obviously, they're going to split Cary. So obviously, I wouldn't expect one, but combined, 20 touchdowns is a lot. You're looking at, couple a game at least. I think it is doable. These are good lines you're picking here. You're making me think a little bit. 1,720. Again, I think the touchdown's a little high, but I have to have confidence in this group. They're the best of I think they're the team's best unit. So I'll go with the over here.
I think to me, that's, if everything goes right, that's the safest over bet you can have. Because top 7 linemen returning, great linemen at that. You put in 2 backs. Look at Britton Brown. We were talking about this earlier, averaging 6 yards a carry. He had 5 touchdowns in 5-6 games last year. I think he's going to go double digits on that. Charbonnet is going to be used in the red zone like no other back, just given his size. I expect this to be the best run game in the Pac-12. So if that's the case, I do think they can hit the over on this. Two overs for Cary so far, 1 under. We like it. Here's a tough one. This is not dealing with Dulcich just yet, but it's more of a combined with Kyle Phillips and Chase Cota.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to go with 1,400 yards receiving, and we'll do 13 touchdowns between the two of them.
And we're talking, so 1,300.
1,400 yards.
1,400 and 13 touchdowns, you said?
Yes.
I'm stalling while I look up Kyle Phillips stats here.
So
2019, we got 681, 5 touchdowns. I'm gonna go with the under just because I think Phillips is gonna have a good year. I don't trust Cota from what he's shown at this point, so I'll go with the under at this one.
That's fair, and I think that one is the diciest. I think if they were to make that jump, we could call ourselves, one of the most complete offenses around.
Yeah.
But that's the big kind of if. We just haven't seen it consistently from Cota. Yeah, Phillips is definitely the safer bet, but both of those guys, it's a tough bet just because you don't know how Cota is going to be this year. So
right. I mean, if Cota's good, then this offense is 3 deep plus the 2 running backs. I mean, that's dangerous. So, it's just a question at this point. We haven't seen it yet, but he certainly has the talent. So we'll see. You never know.
Certainly has the talent to make the jump in his final year in Westwood. Let's pivot to our boy Greg Dulcich. This is one of my favorite ones because if he does hit these numbers, he's going to be squarely in the conversation for not only one of the best tight ends in the country, but I think he'll be a high top 3-round draft pick if this goes well this year. Dulcich, he averaged 20 yards a catch last year, so I do want to preface that before I give out the number. We're going with over 50 catches, 1,000 yards, and 10 touchdowns, over under.
This is a tough one because it's high, but he's so good, and I don't think he's going to decline. So over 50 catches, 1,000 yards, and 10 touchdowns.
He had over 500 last year too. So I mean, this is
let's take the over on that one. It's hard not to buy into that kid's skill set, especially. I mean, I just don't see him declining. I mean, he could, but that would just be a surprising thing. I mean, there are things that wouldn't surprise me. Like I wouldn't be surprised if their defense was bad. I wouldn't be surprised if they, were had a losing record. I would be surprised if Dulcich was looked bad all of a sudden. It just doesn't seem like it's going to happen.
Absolutely. And just the confidence he built from the SC game. I mean, that is the biggest game UCLA has. And he was dominant, just going over, future NFL DBs on USC, making contested catches, beating linebackers that'll be in the pros. So when you have that confidence that I could do that against SC in the Pac-12, I can probably do that against anyone I want. Right. I just think this year he's really going to jump out and put everything together. So Greg Dulcich, we hope for the best, my man. Let's move to the defensive side of the ball. Caleb Johnson, 5.5 sacks last year, was dominant, just kind of blitzing. Do you think he gets over 8 sacks in a full 12-game schedule next year?
I feel like I'm taking too many overs, but I mean, again, you got to project to a full season schedule, and we know they like to blitz. We know that they have lost some of the defensive line, so some of Osa's numbers are gonna be split among other players. So yeah, let's take the over on that one.
We're taking an over. I love it. So Caleb Johnson, if he gets 8 sacks, he's square in position to maybe be a first-team All-Pac-12 performer.
Yeah.
Let's hope Caleb Johnson does that this next year. I'm going to move to the secondary. Quentin Lake, a guy we've talked about, ball hawk, makes plays when he's on the field. The question is if he's on the field. So I will preface this question if he does play a full 12-game schedule.
Yeah.
If Quentin Lake plays the full schedule, does he get over under 4 interceptions this year for the Bruins?
So again, and this is not a counting injury, right? We're talking if he's healthy. So he played the last time he played a full game schedule was 2018 as a sophomore, and he got 2 interceptions. And we're talking over under 4.
Over under 4.
Well, he had 1 last year in 5 games, 3 career interceptions. I think I have to take the under on this one, unfortunately.
Taking the under.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's going to be a crowded secondary. I think there's a lot of people that could step up and make plays. I think I'd actually take the over on that. I think, we've seen the potential with him. This is the year he really needs to jump out, especially if he wants to, get drafted, because I do think he's talented enough to – at the very least, become like a late round pick if something goes right, or, will be signed to a training camp squad going in. But if he wants to really make a jump in his final year and get the notice of the NFL teams, he's going to have to ball out. He's going to have to stay healthy. If he stays healthy, I feel like he will make that jump. So that's my bold prediction, I think, of the year, is that he'll get 4 picks if he's able to play this year, a full slate.
I don't think it's too bold, and I think like you said, it's an important step for him. Absolutely. So I would hope that he does reach those numbers. I guess just going with with his past production at this point, and we know it's a crowded secondary as well. But he does need to take this step, like you said. So I would hope that he would get to those numbers, that everything would come together for the secondary as well.
So we have concluded the prop bets. Cary has been an awesome guest here on episode 4. I just want
those receipts. You got to keep those receipts, man. So end of the season, we can see how wrong I was. I'm not good at predicting, so I'm curious to see here. We got to hold on to these receipts and come back to this one.
I love it, man. We went through the schedule. I believe I'm at 9-3 on the year, and I think you're around 8-4, something of that nature. If that happens, I do believe Chip Kelly keeps his job. So I would like that to be the case. Hopefully that is. Cary, thank you so much for coming on, man. I had an awesome time talking UCLA with you. I'd love to have you back on during the season.
Hey, man, this is
a lot of fun. Appreciate having me on. Great to talk football. And, happy to come on anytime. Just let me know.
Absolutely, man.
Happy to come on anytime. Just let me know.
Absolutely, man.